Thanks for staying with us. It's still TVC Breakfast. The need for a more sustainable economy has become even more critical as global trends are changing, and these trends are accompanied by changing consumption patterns, leading to an increase in volume of waste generated. According to DataFight, Nigeria generates about 32 million metric tons of waste annually, of which 2.5 million tons of this is plastic waste. And with various policies put in place to coordinate sustainability in the environment, the question remains on just how much is being implemented and monitored. We have details in this report.
We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. Imagine handing them a world without waste. In our journey towards a sustainable future, focusing solely on individual action might feel like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. To make a real difference, we must tackle the roots of the problem in a big and grand way. To be exact, the systems that shape the way we produce, consume, relate with nature and with each other as a society. Let's be honest, our current systems are designed for disposability, not sustainability. They prioritize short-term convenience and profit over the long-term health of our planet. Take food waste as an example. Current statistics show that we produce 1.3 billion tons of food waste annually around the world. This amounts to about 8 to 10% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. To put this into perspective, this will be 8 times of Mount Everest made entirely out of uneaten food. That is a lot of food waste and a huge climate threat. One thing is for sure, we need new systems. It is time to invest in zero waste and stop burning money on polluting industries like waste incineration, gasification, pyrolysis, and chemical recycling. Effective systemic change involves redesigning our economies to function within nature's limits and people's well-being. In many parts around the world, this means reducing resource consumption. And for all goods that we really need, creating systems where every product can be repurposed, recycled, or composted so that nothing is wasted. These zero-waste models will bring us closer to a waste-free, sustainable, and a just future for all. This sounds like a beautiful vision, I know, but you might be asking yourself, how should we start to change these rigid old systems? This transition goes beyond individual behavior change. It requires our governments and businesses to redesign our economy to be zero waste. We need policy changes that effectively drive zero waste and enables local ecosystems to safely recycle, reuse, and compost all discards. Policies that put people at the center of this transition to align with environmental and social justice. This sounds like an ambitious plan, but is there any evidence that these strategies are already working? Yes.
In the Ashanti region, specifically Edubiasi, Gaio is able to collect 90% of organic waste from the households. Organic waste is very important to us because they serve as the major contributor of greenhouse gases when they are sent to landfills, which is the normal practice done by assembly officials.
The best part, solutions like these not only reduce waste, they revitalize local economies. Zero waste systems create 200 times more jobs than our old disposal system. And it doesn't stop there. These practices create better jobs that go beyond basic labor, provide higher wages, and offer permanent positions and improve quality of life. Are you still unsure if these strategies can be implemented on a larger scale? Let's take a look at success stories of zero waste on a municipality level. Trivandrum in India was able to bring down their waste to 150 tons per day through the implementation of green protocols, public campaigns, and about single-use plastics. Or Santa Juana in Chile.
La motivación del municipio fue disminuir el traslado de residuos a relleno sanitario. También una motivación fue enseñar a la gente educación ambiental para que pudieran separar sus residuos en sus casas y el municipio poder trasladarlo a la planta y tratarlos. Y también fue el disminuir los gases de efecto invernadero que estaban provocando también y están provocando el calentamiento global y el cambio climático.
Those cities are showing us that systems change is not only effective, but achievable. The solutions are there. Now it's up to us to advocate for them and apply them globally. For our planet, for our children, for a future where waste does not exist. Because we don't just inherit the earth from our ancestors, we are borrowing it from our children. And we need to return it in a better shape than we found it.
Right. We've been watching a clip, so to speak, of a form of coalition by international activists from across the world, obviously, who are working to curb the menace that plastic waste, brings to the planet. And, to take this conversation further, we bring in, joining us in the studio, the Executive Director, Sustainable Research and Action for Environmental Development, Leslie Adogame. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Also joining via Zoom, this time from Benin City in Edo State, is the Project Officer, Waste Management Environmental Rights Action, Friends of the Earth Nigeria, Ifechi Enyinaya. It's good to have you join us on the program this morning. So welcome to you both. Let's begin in the studio. Dr. Leslie, talk to us about this coalition. Of course, Nigeria, as we were mentioning earlier, has an unenviable status, so to speak, of waste generation. But now that you've escalated the problem now on an international scale, talk to us about that. Let's start off before we now bring it all home.
Okay, thank you so much. The coalition is a global alliance for incinerators alternatives. In other words, we focus on an aspect of waste management referred to as zero waste. Zero waste is basically a concept, a very latent concept for efficient waste management. And Gaia, as it is called, we are spread all over the world. We advocate for sustainable waste management. We in Nigeria are working under the zero waste concept under the Gaia Africa framework. Back home here in Nigeria, we have a very strong coalition of NGOs. We call it Gaia Nigeria NGOs, where we try as much as possible to propagate the concept of zero waste. We're setting out guidelines that municipal governments can follow because the campaign has been so much about recycling. We cannot basically recycle our waste. Recycle our way out of, a lot of this waste. So the best approach is a zero waste approach. And what we are trying to propagate is to say Zero Waste Initiative talks much more about the best and the most efficient way of waste management. What do we mean? A human being must continue to produce waste as long as you are alive. And the best, most sustainable waste management is talking about what we call green consumerism, what we call changing in production lifestyles. We just can't continue to produce things when we do not have the means to manage them. So you need to, first of all, redesign. That was the first hierarchy on zero waste. Today we talk, from your analysis, you talked about plastics as the highest volume of waste stream in Nigeria. We must have to begin to redesign right from the basis, plastic materials that the environment carrying capacity can hold. Today, the environment carrying capacity is overstretched. So we cannot continue to produce this kind of plastic that are non-biodegradable. They must have to be plastics. If we must use plastics that are biodegradable, if it's possible. Then when you move from redesigning right from the scratch, you can now move to issues like, how do you reduce waste at source? How do you reuse waste? Until we imbibe all in fact, even though we keep on propagating recycling is right at the bottom of the pyramid of waste management. And that's why we find today we have accumulation of waste everywhere. Why? Because we are looking at recycling as the best approach. No, recycling is right at the bottom.
Absolutely.
Yes, we have to start from redesigning of waste, reducing waste at source, that's waste segregation in our homes, and reusing waste. Those are the concepts of zero waste we're trying to propagate.
Yeah, let me quickly bring in Ifechi, who is joining us via Zoom. It's quite interesting to know that our guests in the studio are trying to educate us on what exactly are these waste. But then, could you help us quantify the tons of waste we have, that Nigeria generates, and exactly what are they really made of? Because I know that recently the Lagos State government, banned the use of styrofoam and all of that. So I'd like to get your reactions to this.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Talking about the waste that Nigeria environment or the Nigerian people generate. We are looking at, as at the last report and analysis, we were made to understand that Nigeria produces about 32 million metric tons of waste. And out of that 32 billion tons of waste, we are looking at 2.5 million tons as only plastic waste, meaning that we are actually already being drowned by plastic waste. And the other waste that is an issue for us in Nigeria is organic waste. And then the other waste that we call the residue waste. These residue waste are the waste that are not recyclables. And when you find, most times we find this waste all over the streets and all over the streets of the cities of Nigeria. So this has become a major issue in Nigeria because as it is now, it is no longer a secret that we are battling waste crisis in Nigeria. And we really, really need to start acting, because if we do not act immediately or now, we stand a chance of jeopardizing the future of a clean environment and well-being of our future generations.
All right. Ifechi, let's put you on hold, or, perhaps I should, take this further in addition to the question that my colleague asked on, the moves by the Lagos State government banning, the use of styrofoams and the like. We also understand that your coalition, which Dr. Leslie here has, initiated, is also carrying out what's been called a brand audit regarding soft drinks companies who are also found culpable polluting the environment with plastics. Tell us about the work that has started in this area and how much progress has been recorded.
Okay, for us, we have been into the brand audit process, and just last year, August through September, in Benin City here, we did a brand audit to checkmate brands that are polluting the environment. That is actually the aim of that brand audit. And the truth of the matter is that at the end of every activity, that wasn't the first time we are doing brand audit as an organization and as a coalition, Gaia Nigeria. At the end of that brand audit, we discovered that there are a whole lot of brands that are polluting the environment. And taking it further from there, we actually organized an action we tagged return to sender action in order to return those plastic wastes to the brands and corporations that own them, because it has become an issue. We are of the opinion, if you can produce waste, you should be able to manage the waste that you produce, because corporations should be held accountable for their waste. In every brand audit that is organized, you find out that a particular brand is always the top polluter, meaning that they make a whole lot of profit at the very detriment of our environment, at the very detriment of our health. And these are issues we need to deal with. So at that return to sender action, we are able to return those plastic wastes to the brands that own them, and we're able to demand for a withdrawal process, a withdrawal scheme rather, that they are able to withdraw their plastic from the environment. Because one of the things as a coalition that we are asking of is for the management of waste should move from to the corporations and brand owners, because you cannot.
And did it work?
I didn't get you.
Did it work? This demand, returning the plastics back to the corporations, making them. Did this move work?
Yes, the move was a successful one, though we are still following up the process so that to ensure that our demands are met.
Interesting stuff. Let me bring it back to the studio. It's one thing for Nigerians to be talked to about, the impact of waste and all of that, and it's another thing for us to get educated about what your organization is doing, or your NGO is doing. But do you think Nigerians actually realize the level of hazards that, that's posed by the waste in the environment?
Yeah. Let me take it from the two main, hierarchy, especially organic waste and plastics. It's not that easy, I can tell you. Let me respond quickly to the last one, then I come back to this.
The one involving the corporation?
Yeah, the brand audits. That audit is something we have been doing over 5 years. Right. We try to do that, just like she mentioned, for us to be able to assess the level of impact these corporations are making. And to a large extent, just like she mentioned, we have found that continuously some brands, you produce, when you make waste, it's your responsibility to take it out of, that's what we call, producer's responsibility. You need to take it back, but these particular materials like the hot drinks, these sachets, hot drinks, are indiscriminately everywhere. Then you also have these ones that are, in plastics, what do you call them? The Action bitters, the Origin bitters, small bottles. There are so many.
There's also a ban anyway.
The Lagos state government actually placed a ban on styrofoam, but also
even on the small bottles.
Yeah, the NAFDAC.
Right.
That's another chapter.
Okay.
There are so many organizations, especially government organizations, not working. They try to work across purposes. NAFDAC ban on those drinks is not from the angle of plastics. It's on the angle of health. The content, health. But there needs to be synergy. So that, because those same plastics from our audits, they are seriously polluting the environment. So what I would, and those plastics are not recyclable. That's the bad aspect about them. Those brown plastics and all that, they are not recyclable. So you find them just littering the environment. Now back to your question in terms of whether Nigerians really appreciate. I'll tell you to a large extent, that's why we are starting this advocacy. That's why this International Day, March 30th, just put in place by the UNEP, is very key to help people conscientize the impact of waste management in their environment. We launched this campaign, Gaia and other members of the coalition, we launched this campaign some years back. And what we are basically trying to say is that people need to understand the impact of these various waste streams, whether it comes from the organic waste stream or the plastic waste streams, which are seriously inundating the environment. To a large extent, we do not yet appreciate that even the organic waste are a resource for us. Why? Because organic waste produced in Nigeria, the large volume of it can be used for composting, can be used for organic fertilizer, can be used for so many other things that can boost our agriculture instead of our dependence on fertilizers.
And these are essentially food waste,
basically
food that we just throw out.
Yes,
that is actually.
This is the season of Easter.
Right.
This is the season of Easter, and you can understand that we consume quite a lot of, we eat quite a lot of food products, and a lot goes into the waste stream. And the meaning of this is we need to begin to imbibe what we call, sustainable consumption patterns, right. Where we collect our organic waste, food waste, and they go into a process whereby they can be reused to boost our agricultural potentials.
Right.
But
right. Yeah. But just before my colleague takes it to Ifechi in Benin City, I just wanted to take you back to the point you made about the small bottles, which you say is also hazardous to our environment, because we see some form of some form of recycling. I've seen, these bottles being reused, maybe to sell snacks, to sell groundnuts, and all of that. It may not be on a large scale, but it's in certain areas we see that too. Do you advocate for that, in addition to these concerns that you've raised?
Yeah, to a large extent, the best way is for us to move away from products that are not recyclable. Okay. Yeah, using them, reusing them. And this is
one of them.
Yeah, you're reusing those, because particularly, like if you see the green bottles, the green XUPs, single-use bottles, they are not recyclable. You can't, especially because they are not transparent, they are opaque. If you go to the recyclers, they tell you, no, we don't need them. But you're reusing them to package other food products like granules and all that. It's not green consumerism. It's not the best way to go around the issue. Because why? Those things are never well cleaned. They are, you can't guarantee to what extent to which they are properly washed, and then they are used to repackage other food products which are directly consumed. Those food products are directly consumed. You take granite, for example, from a bottle. You don't wash them. You don't do any cleaning. You consume straight. And some of these things have contaminated. I mean, they have some germs already contaminated the foods. And that, to a large extent, talks about the health issues you talked about. That we cannot say we are managing waste and managing plastics, bottles, reusing, at the same time be causing another health problem. So this is very key, and this is the message we're trying to send in this campaign. Yeah.
All right, let me come back to our guest on Zoom. On Thursday, July 6, 2023, President Tinubu, suspended the green tax. Trying to say that a way of solution to the plastic pollution menace, which your organization or your advocacy actually said that they do not want the president to actually suspend it. What they want is outright ban. So this is just trying to find out what you think the government at the federal level and state level are doing to ensure that citizens and producers comply with basic environmental laws, including, dumping of waste. Do you feel tax or ban, so to speak?
As a coalition, the best option is a total ban on plastic waste, and the other option that we are bringing on the desk is we need to rethink our systems of production, packaging, and consumption. Because if we do not look towards that area, the waste that we are trying to reduce cannot be reduced. And these are the things that Zero Waste campaign is all about. It is all about becoming responsible in our production, in our packaging, in our consumption. We are looking out for policies that will back up these things that we are talking about, because we cannot be talking about waste and then we cannot be talking about handling waste and then we are not seeing them happening. Then the other policy that is a very important thing that the government needs to look.
Hello, Ifechi. All right, Ifechi, okay, let's put you on hold. We'll try to reconnect if we have the time. Perhaps, Doctor, you could take it further for us, especially on, the need for collaboration, how much collaboration the coalition is enjoying from the governments, to boost up its enforcement.
Yes, thank you very much on that. I think it's a very straightforward answer to the question of tax or ban. No matter how much tax you put on plastic product, the corporations will continue to churn them out because it's cheap. They will pay 5%. What's 5%? They're going to pay it. And that's not a solution. That's not a sustainable solution. The best solution to especially single-use plastics all over Africa, West Africa region is to ban SUPs. Styrofoam is already on the banner, being taken off by Lagos State government. We're looking forward to other kind of SUPs that have to be taken off. This thing can be done. We understand the economics around that. We understand the issue of livelihoods. People are employed in those sectors. Right. Yes, we are campaigning as well, telling the government that you don't need to take them off all at once. You need to go stepwise.
Give them like a moratorium.
A moratorium period. Styrofoam is gone because it has no recyclability, right. No second-hand usage,
But single-use plastics now for drinks and all that. So what's the option? I know coffees can also come in cups and all of that. Those cups, those plastic spoons, those ones you use in parties and all that can go because there are alternatives. The alternatives. But for drinks, what's the alternatives for companies like these companies when if they have to ban the use of single-use plastics?
Yes, basically there are alternatives to all of them. If I would have even come to the studio, if I had known, I would have showed you options. They're all in my car right now.
Could you mention the name of these alternatives? Like some of them.
Yes, all the plastic spoon, plastic cups, bottles, all of them have alternatives. Plastic plates, they all have alternatives, right? And we need to begin to change our, attitude towards a shift. Behavior. Behavior is very difficult.
No, the question I was asking is the alternative, whether it has a name, like this alternative, what are they exactly? If you can't see them,
like the bottles, in place of the bottles, these single-use bottles now. So what would be the way to go? Is this something that we can carry around? And
yes, that's what I'm saying. I have quite a number of them in the car. There are these other ones that are, you can easily take them around. Just refillables. They are called refillables. Okay. Yeah, remember in those days, for example, before this plastic, let me just say Coca-Cola, for example, before they came, all these different plastics, we're using bottles. You take, what happens? If you want to buy a bottle of Coca-Cola or 7-Up, you take the bottle, the glass bottle, to the vendor, and you exchange the crates, and they give you whatever. You go with empty. So even these days, people have refillables. Refillables, where you just carry around. And why do you have to, at every consumption, you throw away? Let me come back to the other point you made.
We've run out of time. We've run out of time. Perhaps if you want to just, spare 5 seconds, is it something you can do?
Yeah, just to say a lot of work is going. The Gaia movement, we're also assisting the government. We just assisted NESRA in drafting regulations that at least by next year we'll be seeing quite a lot of the SUPs being banned. And we are also trying to provide alternatives that at least Nigerians can shift to. We're not just saying ban, but we have to provide alternatives that people can switch into.
All right, Ifechi, are you back? Are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. We, caught, not our fault anyway, but we lost your connectivity at a point. Do you want to carry on with that point about the extent of government monitoring what is lacking and how you are finding a way to make up for this shortfall?
Okay, just like I was saying, we are actually advocating for policies that that will back up what we are saying. So policies like segregation from source. These are policy. When we talk about ahead, most people are talking about banning littering.
Hello, Ifechi. Okay, but, Dr. Leslie, beyond government, I'm wondering now, we see a lot of groups, regular Nigerians, going to beaches and, and other key locations, to try and eradicate and remove some of this, unwanted waste from the society. But how can, citizens latch on to this campaign, ordinary Nigerians latch on to this campaign?
Yeah, I think the starting point is basically for government to entrench it from the policy point of view, because if you don't make it a policy issue that people can imbibe, it's going to be very difficult for people to change behavior. Then two, there are different groups, interest groups that are actually latching into this area of, they also see it as a livelihood issue, but they are helping to, kind of broker a sustainable approach to it. For example, we call them the Waste Pickers Association. This is a very important group, and what we're advocating is, even though the corporations are just producing like there's no tomorrow, this group called the Waste Pickers Association needs to be formalized. They are doing very wonderful job because they are the one that goes around picking some of this plastic. Yeah, they are the bridge between the polluters as well, and the effective management of this waste at local level. So
they shouldn't be ostracized, as we
no,
see that
all over
in some areas they've become, unwanted.
I tell you,
people are now burning their refuse, doing an indiscriminate waste disposal.
Rather, they should be entrenched. They should be involved into the system. I tell you, right now, as we're talking, there's a global treaty being negotiated called the Plastic Treaty. And I tell you, there's a very huge space for the Waste Pickers Association because they'll be recognized as very vital in the entire process, that if waste management is going to be sustainable, especially plastic, then the waste pickers are very key. So in Nigeria, we are also trying to see how the Waste Pickers Association can be mainstreamed into the entire value chain of waste management.
That's right. Ifechi, I believe you're back. Very quickly, talk to us about what you feel are the challenges in achieving this goal, because this zero waste goal, and how do you think, if there are challenges, if there are barriers to achieving them, and how do you think we can overcome them?
Okay, talking about challenges and barriers, we really need to look towards developing or setting up zero waste infrastructures. So these are things that can help us achieve a zero waste society in Nigeria, zero waste infrastructure. Then we need to step up on education and awareness. Then at the government end, they should also back the process up with policies. Not just policies, because policy goes with policing. So it should also be followed up for full implementation. Now, when we talk about education that I spoke about, it is also not just for citizens. Everybody in the waste sector needs this education, because just like when I was talking about segregation of waste from source, an individual cannot segregate their waste from source, and then when a waste manager comes to pick them, they jump pack it up, and it's quite discouraging. So our waste managers, everybody in the waste sector, we need that education to be able to achieve the zero waste system that we all clamor for.
We'll still need you to help us do a bit of connection between the climate change and zero waste initiative, because what we'll be wondering, well, this is my waste, it's just waste, and why are you talking about climate change? What exactly do you think we need to understand in order to mitigate against the impact it has on the climate change? What's the correlation?
Okay, the waste sector actually is quite related. It is much an issue when we talk about climate change, because the waste sector releases a potent gas that is so powerful, one of the greenhouse gases. Now, when we talk about organic waste, during the decomposition of organic waste, a whole lot of things happen. Methane gas is being emitted into the environment, and then methane gas is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide in trapping air in the environment, making it a very strong greenhouse gas that adds to the issues of climate change. So these are the issues. When we talk about waste and climate change, it is a very serious issue, because the waste sector alone is very much adding up to this issue of waste, of climate change. So we really need to deal with it by diverting our waste from the dump site, because one of the things that zero waste does not believe in is the dump site and open dumping of waste. We believe in creation or establishment of a resource site where people can walk in, and there are a whole lot of things going on in that resource site where these materials are well managed, rather than the open dumping that we are doing in Nigeria. So these are the things we can do. And talking about climate change, with zero waste, we are able to combat or mitigate the issues of climate change.
Right. And if I'm correct, it's a 5-year-old campaign so far, this work that you've been doing, at least in Nigeria. But if you could quantify the progress, the successes, how much progress, have we, been able to record?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much because Nigeria is fairly, for us to reach the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, it's quite challenging. But I think to a large extent, our starting point was we ensured that the national policy on plastic waste, starting from the policy level, we ensured that it imbibed a zero waste approach. It's already there. Also, when the federal government, through NESRA, was crafting the various regulations on plastics, we also tried to ensure that the zero waste concept is built in there. Currently, with all the brand audits we are having, we are also taking the message into different schools, trying to conscientize students about what zero waste concept is. We want to even see if we can build it into curriculum. We're also talking with Loma to see how we can take the message to the grassroots, that is estates in Lagos, Lagos and other states, where at least estates will begin to demonstrate, practice exactly the zero waste concept. Of course, the fear we understand is, what's going to happen to the PSP, Loma, and all that? And just like she mentioned, you see, these whole things are all interlinked. Climate change is a major, what we call a wicked environmental issue, which is really impacting our environment and our life. And solid waste management, the organic waste, which is a huge portion, contributes significantly to climate change. We do not want to see all these dump sites. I also understand that Gaia team is also part of an initiative which is almost coming up very soon with the Lagos State government. Lagos State is being piloted under what we call the low methane initiative, amongst, I think, a few countries, because the governor of Lagos State demonstrated real will commitment when he went to COP28 the last COP28. And there, we civil society decide we want to work with the government to put in place a low methane strategy for Nigeria. So Lagos is going to pilot that. Very soon you will start hearing activities that will, at least all the dump sites in Lagos will try to move away from huge dump sites to a low methane strategy where Lagos will begin to imbibe waste reduction at source, waste mitigation, and all these different zero waste strategies to be able to.
But in all of these, we're out of time, yeah?
Can you make it?
Right, but in all of these, we are also meant to also play our own role. It's not that we are, working on this waste ourselves. We just have to still contribute it to the larger, to the larger portion. Is that what it means?
Yes, sure. Everybody's got a role to play. Okay. Everybody. And that's why we're on this kind of platform, so that on a day like this, when everybody is enjoying Easter and all that, we can send a message to every individual or group of people, depending on which angle you come from. Every waste you produce indoors, we have to begin to imbibe a zero waste concept of managing it, reducing it at source. All
right. Dr. Leslie Adogame, we thank you very much for speaking with us, the Executive Director, Sustainable Research and Action for Environmental Development, and Ifechi Eyinaya of the Friends of the Earth Nigeria. We thank you very much for braving the odds, especially with the connectivity issues. Thank you very much for speaking with us on TVC Breakfast, and we hope that your campaign will continue to yield more needed fruits. Still ahead on TVC Breakfast, all may not